The next operation we need to take care of in this refret is preparing the fingerboard. Now there are a few attributes of the fingerboard we need to tend to. One of them is under string tension and fretted, it needs to be nearly straight from end to end. And the other thing we want to do is preserve the radius of the fingerboard. And I happen to know 50s and 60s Telecasters are you know, pretty close to 7 1/4 inches. Now I'll double check with my radius gauge just to make sure, and sure enough that's where we're at. So that's a good thing. I also have a radius sanding caul, and that's made so I can sand the entire length of the fingerboard, made by Stuart McDonald here, and still retain that radius in the fingerboard and make it straight from end to end. So before I do that, actually, what I also want to do, I want to make sure the neck is straight first, because if it isn't straight, if it's bowed up in the middle or has too much relief, then I'll sand too much out of the areas I don't want to take material out of. So let's check here. It seems like yeah, that's pretty straight, so I think we're good on that. So the first thing I'll do is take this radius sanding caul and get it centered on this. I'll go back and forth and just make sure that I am hitting everywhere, meaning that for the most part that the neck is straight, and so anything I'm doing now is basically just leveling up little peaks and valleys, you know, that come in. It's organic material, it's wood, it's kind of, you know, it's warped over time. A lot of times they have wear from playing when they're vintage instruments. And as I see, I'm really starting to really kiss the whole length, and that's good. That means the next in the proper adjustment to level the board, like that. So the other attribute of preparing the fingerboard is we have to make sure that the fret slots are the proper depth. Once the board is leveled, I know that the fret wire I use is, you know, the tang is about 50 thousandths deep that it'll go into. That's the piece of metal underneath the crown of the fret that actually goes into the fingerboard. Now I've chosen fret wire with a shorter tang because on these instruments often there's not a lot of fingerboard here, and I've seen too many instruments that have been refretted and the fret tang actually goes through the rosewood fingerboard and into the maple neck, and that's not what we want. So we want to retain the slot to be not into the maple. And so I have this fret wire with the shorter tang on it, made by Stuart McDonald. Again, this says 155. And we're going to use that. But first I have to check these slots. And what I'll do is I have a fret slotting saw here where I can have a guide set, and I will just make that the teeniest bit longer, like those are 48 thousandths of the tang, and I'll make this maybe 55 or something, so that there's a teeny bit of clearance at the bottom of the tang of the fret as it slides in, so I know there's no impediment to the crown of that fret sitting exactly against the fingerboard. Next part of the refret is to actually install the frets into the fingerboard. Now I've already depthed the frets with my fret slotting saw, so I just need to make sure that the fret slot is cleaned out from any of that sawdust that's there. And another thing that I've done is I've over radiused this fret wire a little bit. I put it in a fret bender and just cranked it out. And the reason I've done that is that sometimes the most difficult part is keeping the fret ends down. Since I've over radiused this, what I'll do is I'll get the ends secure first, and then I'll slowly work my way across the fret to make sure that at the end of the operation, the crown of the fret, the bottom of the crown, is seated perfectly against the fingerboard. Ends first, and then just work my way across there. Now that's the way I like to see it seated. You don't hit it so hard that you make either a dent in the fret or that you push the fret wire into the fingerboard. You do it just enough so it's just firm and snugly, absolutely has its face right down on the fingerboard there. That's all we got for today, working on this 1960 Fender Custom Telecaster. Here, this is Tony Nagy on the 3rd floor of Gruhn Guitars. See ya.